Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. It's exciting to see you. I feel like I haven't been out in the world and seen people. This is no joke. I have not been to an event like this in 18 months. So it's a little bit weird, to be honest. Thank you for the introduction. So again, I'm Alexis Walsko. I am the founder of Lola Red PR. Lola Red is a digital PR agency that I founded at the age of 22 in Boulder, Colorado. Boulder, Colorado is a town known for its innovation and its entrepreneurial spirit. I actually studied entrepreneurism in college, which is kind of what drove me to start Lola Red so early. So like some of you, all of you, I'm an entrepreneur. I love it. I feel like it's written on my soul. I'm also a publicist, which I'm a self-taught publicist, and that is someone that brings stories to the media. Also a founder. There's one title that's not on here right now, which is Mother, which is a new title that I just added to my list of titles 2 months ago. So 2 months ago. Thank you. So again, first time out, literally first time wearing shoes in 6 months. So, because my feet have grown quite considerably after twins. So there's a first time for everything. But so twins, baby girl Frankie, baby boy Captain, they are at home while I can be here with you. So some things we're going to talk about. As what I've learned in business over 22 years, it's a scary number, but every good thing that happens in business and every bad thing that happens in business, it's a chance to learn a lesson. My friends get really irritated with me because I always say, oh, that's one of the lessons we're going to take with us. But these lessons are what I've turned into mantras now that I use to help guide our company and guide some of the other companies that we work with. So there are two of them that I'm going to talk about today that are about pitching. So what I'm going to ask of you is the audience here, and if there's anyone far away via the cameras, if you have questions or if you have expectations or specifics about pitching media or pitching investors, please just feel free to ask in the moment in case I'm not being clear. Is that cool? Remember, 18 months away, babies 2 months ago. I might be a little bit rusty. My number one mantra is your network is your net worth. So this is one that, interestingly, Lola Red, we typically serve consumer-related businesses. So companies that we have worked with that you might know, Smashburger, Lifetime Fitness. Right now we represent a handheld pocket translator called Pocket Talk out of Japan. We also have a separate division that represents professional athletes. Professional athletes are similar to entrepreneurs. They're out there selling themselves every day. So does anyone here, have you heard of Kyle Rudolph? Minnesota Viking, played for 10 years here. Now he's with the Giants. So Kyle Rudolph has actually been a long time Lola Red client, and he is the one that he and I sort of worked together on this your network is your net worth idea. So Kyle came to me 7 years ago. So he'd been with the Vikings about 4 years. And he knew that he was in this awesome place and that he was playing for the NFL. He had a spotlight that would follow whatever he brought his attention to. He knew that he could use it to impact his community. He could use it to lengthen his career. He could use it to help a charity, help people. And he wanted to do more of it. He also knew that his partner, and who was responsible for his marketing at the time, his agent, because his agent represented other guys like Aaron Rodgers. You might have heard of him. He's in the state next to us, a quarterback, pretty popular. But since his agent represented Aaron Rodgers and some other big players, Kyle was never really going to make the list, which is why he engaged us to help him. The results of the probably 7 steps I'm going to take you through in pitching yourself, the steps that we followed for Kyle Rudolph, these were the results that came of that. So if any of you remember a couple of years ago, Kyle had a contract extension with the Vikings. Kyle needed to play football well, so I am not going to take responsibility for this, but it helped that we had positioned him over 5 years as a really important member of the community and as someone that would give back and be part of our community. We also, over that time, developed media contacts that Kyle now has as his media contacts that he can call to promote anything that he is part of. Of course, they want to talk a little bit of football with him, but they also want to talk about whatever company he is promoting at the time. He has sponsorship deals. He has become a shareholder of some startups because of all of this. He has revenue streams that are coming in. So when he goes to the Super Bowl, he is paid to go to dinner with people. He is paid to go to events. He is paid to talk about businesses. And this is all because he built this network that became his net worth. And he also is a member of numerous boards and has other influence opportunities. So the steps that we took with Kyle that I would encourage everyone to take when you are looking at building out a network is, one, determine what your goals are. So with Kyle, he wanted to maximize this time in this spotlight and amplify this time in the spotlight. His goals, obviously, were kind of the results that we just talked through, but we were paying attention to those goals every step of the way. Number 2, Kyle needed to determine who was on his team and who he needed on his team. Obviously, he's a football player. He's very good at football. He probably should focus on football. He doesn't need to play publicist. So he hired people that were better than him, which I think that's a common question that I get asked by a lot of startups is, how do we know? When do we hire an accountant? When do we hire a publicist? When do we hire a professional designer? My answer to that, from entrepreneur to entrepreneur, is determine what is your time valued at and what are you best at. That is what you should be spending your time as a founder as, and then hire the other people to do those other things for you. It is why at Lola Red we have accountants, we have attorneys, we have obviously we have publicists on our team that help us to publicize our work. But for Kyle, that is what he needed, was to find those people. I can give you tips to do some of that work, not accounting. Don't ask me about accounting, but to help you to do some of that work on your own. Also, number 3, share your goals and ask for help. This is something that Kyle is exceptional at, and as an entrepreneur, it was something that guided me through the time, is with everyone that I met, since I knew exactly what I wanted, which usually what I want is to grow my business, that then I am able to ask all of those people for a connection that they have, if they can introduce me. I can ask them for knowledge that they have, and that can they help me to either glean more of that knowledge or to share that with me so that I can grow my business. And I can use it to further any of the projects that we are working on. Number 4, do the work in building your network. That means continuing to keep in touch with all of the people that you are meeting and connecting with. Does this make sense? How often do you meet people and you're like, hey, great to meet you, thanks for the business card, and then you forget about it? So it is a lot of work, but it is work that is worth doing to connect with people on social media, connect with them on LinkedIn, remind them of how you met them, do custom notes, custom invitations. Number 5 is one of my favorites, and that's to be of service. So for Kyle, this was something that was really important. Being of service means when you meet someone, to be willing to give them something, not just ask for something. And personally, in business, from entrepreneur to entrepreneur, this is something that we give a lot. So as a publicist, I give a lot of help, I give a lot of influence, and it is super beneficial to me when people have something that they can share as well. So it is actually, if you ever get coffee with me, the last question I will ask you is, how can I support you? because I am always willing to take that step before I ask you for anything. And I think that that's something that as entrepreneurs sometimes we forget, yet it is worthwhile. Number 6, does anyone have questions? Is some of this like common sense? I hope that it is. No question, okay. Keep in touch. So this is building your messaging platform that you are sending out via emails, social media, LinkedIn, but continuing to keep in touch with this network that you have built. Number seven, okay, there's a term in journalism called burying the lead. One of my team members, Dan Hyman, is sitting right here. I can't even say former journalist, current journalist, works at Lola Red, but in this presentation, I buried the lead, which the lead is make connections when you don't need them. Because there is nothing more challenging in building your network than being so hungry for something and needing it in a certain amount of time that then you are asking at that time versus asking before. As an entrepreneur, and whether you are pitching media, my goal when I was a publicist every single day was to read as many articles that were applicable to my business or to my client's business and introduce myself to people that I knew that I would be pitching or I hoped that I would be pitching in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, because then I didn't need them to respond to the story at the time. And that is, in startup world, I think that is also about knowing your network. So having a pulse on what you need and what you want is who in media is writing about those things, who in social media or online media is of influence in those spaces. And number 8, be a good person and never burn a bridge. I would think that this is obvious, but it's not. And burning bridges, like it is really hard to do, and especially here in Minnesota, it's a very small town. So if you can keep things positive, be of service, stay in good contact with people, it makes everything a whole heck of a lot easier as you go on to build your business. And these are things that Kyle did at every single turn. And each day when I went and had my 2 twins, one of the first texts that I got was from Kyle congratulating me on that new adventure. But that is because that is the ongoing contact and how he practices all of these. My friend Joe here, who works at Lola Red, when we were talking about this presentation earlier today, he said something I might want to hit on is some blind spots. And some blind spots that Kyle Rudolph had when he was in building his network and as we did work together. Interestingly, I think as you build a network, some blind spots are maybe you have a weakness. Like maybe you don't really like social gatherings. I really like the size of this crowd. I can present to this many people. I can actually present to about 250, 500 comfortably, but I don't like being in rooms and socializing with 500. 100 people is fine. Like 100 people or more, it's kind of uncomfortable for me. So I don't really like to do those things, but sometimes I have to go and do them because it is for the betterment of my business. It is for the betterment of the team members that I work with. Kyle, on the other hand, is willing to do just about anything that he needs to do to achieve his goals. And he's super interesting in that when he goes into uncomfortable situations, what he does is that he over-prepares. So something that I don't know if a lot of people know, but something that professional athletes do the week before the Super Bowl is that they head down to the Super Bowl city and they are engaged by companies to go out to dinner with executives. Sometimes it's for a charity, like a charitable event. Sometimes it's just a party, but that's their job. It's part of their sponsorship deal. And in doing that, there are a lot of different ways that someone like Kyle could show up. Something he was proud of, and since the first day that he and I met, he actually said to me, he's like, Alexis, don't worry, I show up well. And I was like, well, yes, you do. You're great. But what he would do is that before he would meet anyone, he would prepare so that he would know the background. He would know anything that was pertinent to their company at the time or new initiatives. He would make sure that he got their contact information. And something that we did for Kyle was that we actually created a business card for him. And it was a professional looking business card, super thick cardstock. On the front of it said Kyle Rudolph, underneath said professional football player, and it had all of his contact information. And the reason that we did that for him and that it worked for him was because when he was meeting the head of Carlson Companies or the head of Pepsi, it's kind of uncomfortable when they're like, here's my business card, it says president. And he'd be like, well, can I, I'll get your number on my phone, or I'll give you my phone number or whatever. And it's just a weird power dynamic. And we wanted to make sure that he was always prepared and able to really present himself in a business manner. The second thing that he would do is that we made personalized thank you cards for him. So that after he would attend all of these events, for everybody that he got a business card for, he would write out a personalized thank you that he would send about how great it was to meet them. And it is because of that now I think he owes investments in 4 or 5 different companies. Some of them are like Tonal, Momentous. He is associated with Jet's Pizza. But these are all networks that he built over that time. Are there any questions? Y'all seem good. It kind of feels like a Friday. Does it feel like that to anybody else? Yeah? Well, then let's make it Friday. Joe was like, yeah. At Lola Red, every day is a Friday. My second lesson and mantra, this is truly PR lesson. Perception equals reality. I always talk about perception and reality, so this is really, this is all about marketing. This is about what you put out there, that you are the one that gets to craft what other people think about you. So how are you going to do it, and what do you want them to think about you? It is what publicists do. So we spend our time talking to our clients to figure out, who are you? Why do you exist? What do you want? What do we need people to think of you so that you can get more of what you want? A client we are super proud of is actually a really great startup called Sphero. Does anyone here know Sphero? You do. You're robots. I know that you know robots. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So Sphero is a robotics company based out of Boulder, Colorado. When we met them, 2013, 14, I don't know, that's forever ago. They had a couple of products, but the cornerstone product was just called Sphero. It's a billiard-sized ball. It's white. It's a toy. It runs off of your iPhone. It was created by these 2 young guys that you see here. And this robotic toy sold for about $150. There were challenges. So the Spark that was brought up, Spark was their adventure into education land, because they needed to figure out, how do you sell a $150 toy? When I talk about perception and reality, I'm going to tell you some of the secrets of how we figured out how to sell a $150, which then actually escalated to a $199 toy. With the work that we did and working with kind of this perception equals reality equation, Sphero, the results, they had record fundraising. I want to say they raised over $150 million over the course of a year. They had best-in-class partnerships. So they ended up with a partnership with Disney. Their partnership with Disney, if you remember when Star Wars came back out, that was when BB-8 became the next new robot. Their partnership with Disney dug really deep into, they were making toys that were connected to Spider-Man. There were Disney products. They did a lot within the Star Wars series. They also had raving fans, so that there were people across the nation, actually around the globe, that were fans of Sphero and fans of just robots in general. They had record sales, and they also had pre-sales. So actually the product that we launched for them, because of their partnership with Disney, handheld BB-8, $199 toy, sold out within 24 hours. And it got so much attention for doing that. Our friends at Disney actually called to be like, who the heck are you people? Because our PR department, which was Lola Red, right on Washington Avenue at the time, outplayed everybody else. And part of what we did was we determined what we wanted. So, and what they wanted was to be leaders in, I keep saying the word toys because that's what we had to get away from. They wanted to be leaders in connected play. Connected play was not a term that was used a lot back then. Connected play is when you have a toy, connects to an iPhone. You can have multiple different uses and purposes for that toy. When you say the word toy versus connected play, people's pocketbook seems to open, and they'll just throw down an extra $150 than they thought they were going to spend for that product. So that was the perception that we wanted people to have. So that word connected play was what we used over and over and over and over, and Sphero truly became the leaders in connected play at the time. So that was establishing our messaging and our cadence. We also had another secret in messaging. It was a secret challenge, actually, in that how do we take this company, Sphero, who was started by two guys who were exceptional at hacking. Exceptional. They could do it in their sleep. They hacked into things that you don't even really want to know about because it would make you a little frightened. They still are robot geeks, so they just like to make robots. And when you look at them, I'm gonna go back, they're young. But our messaging challenge became, how do these two young guys, who you and I are the youth at that time, we were super fans of them and thought that they had the coolest founders story, but then we had to bring in this guy in the middle who became their CEO. And how do we tell the story of the guy that comes in to sort of guide the dream company and guide the guys in hoodies? And it was a challenge because we didn't want to give up kind of that cool factor, which we had as being a really young startup as Sphero, but we also were now responsible for reporting to companies like a Disney. And so we had to bring in someone who was a really great resource to the leaders at Disney. And so for our messaging, again, that goes back to the point of connected play, developing this whole avenue of connected play. Also, number 3, something that's really important when pitching your business is to be consistent and persistent. So, as we talked about connected play, as we talked about our 2 founders and then our partner Disney and our hundreds of millions of dollars of investment, we continued to tell the exact same story over and over and over of how it happened. This is also a trick. One of our other clients has been Smashburger. We started with them when they had 7 locations, I believe. Smashburger, we invented the line, fresh, never frozen, smashed and seared on a flaming hot grill. Which, that was what they said about their burgers every single time we talked to anybody and everybody. But by saying it, it's something that people identified with Smashburger. just like connected play, which I've now said 50 million times, is what we've associated with Sphero. And that persistent communication, this is actually very similar to what I said before about your network. It's something that I think entrepreneurs forget about, is talking all the time. So number 4 is showing that positive growth. Sometimes you think you have to find things to tell people about. You actually do, but you also should tell them about everything. So Smash Burger days, we would announce things like our new lettuce. And this is when we had 7 locations. Like, we have the greatest new lettuce. You can't believe how great our lettuce is. We would send it out in a press release. And what happened was the perception of Smash Burger was that we had many more than 7 locations, because if we were so big that we were announcing our lettuce, we must be buying more lettuce than anybody else. What's interesting about that is that strategy, in being consistent, being persistent, staying on our message and announcing everything and showing positive growth and movement, actually got the attention of the Food Network for Smash Burger. So when they were super tiny chain, which today they have hundreds of locations in dozens of countries. They're actually owned by another firm overseas now. But we were getting attention of bigger groups and bigger media outlets because we were acting and playing and wanting people to perceive us as bigger than we actually were. I told you a story early. I'm going to do it here. It's like a new mom metaphor that I've learned. Sleep begets sleep is the lesson that we're working on in my home right now, so that when children sleep, the chances of them sleeping better, the more often they sleep, it amplifies itself. And that is the same thing with success. And so you guys have probably seen it in startup world, but once you get one person talking about it, or one media feature, or one influencer, then you get another one. Then you get another one. And that is because people want to follow the success and the growth, but you have to be able and willing and make it a priority to tell them those things. Number 5, this is actually a PR trick. It's a PR trick and it's a networking trick. Find something that makes you memorable. So in our athlete world, I always talk to our athletes and I'm like, let's find your physical thing. Like, what is it? So I have one guy he was from Texas. He no longer plays, David Morgan. And I'm like, David Morgan, you've got to wear a cowboy hat. Like, every time you get on that plane to go to a game, I need you to wear your cowboy hat. So he became the cowboy hat guy. Who else? Somebody else had a beard. And then I'm like, you've got to keep the beard because that's your thing. Now, this is the same thing when it comes to PR and to marketing your businesses. It is helpful to have a thing. So our 2 Sphero guys, they were the hackers. They were the robot hackers. They were in Boulder, sort of your typical entrepreneurs in Boulder, young, hoodies. That was their physical thing. You could also get a face tattoo. That makes you very memorable. I don't recommend it, but it is the easiest trick in the world. But that is the reason that I know Fusion Hill presented right before us to work on your design, your graphics, how everything looks, how it flows. Those little things are how people remember you over time. Number 6, I think this is an evolution in marketing today, is that you have to be a solution to something. So if you want your message to be sticky, you need to solve people's problems, because that's, I think, how we are creating relationships as consumers today, so whatever that problem is. If you want to go back to Sphero and talk about connected play is now a more engaged way for children to play. Also, our solution at the time was that we were teaching kids and also really specifically women or young girls were our target market, to teach them how to code, which that was a solution to parents who wanted to get their kids more involved in tech. Be newsy. So sometimes in business and in startup world and in entrepreneurial world, you have to look at your business and find the things that are newsy or do things that are newsy. This is the reason why people do PR stunts. This is the reason that you read about. I'm trying to think about, can anyone think of the latest PR stunt you've heard of? I feel like, okay. So that was a really good one. Yep, that was perfect. SpaceX sending a car into space. They sent to Tesla. It totally makes sense. Yep, that was a PR stunt. I also always think of the Red Bull. Remember when they sent the guy up into space and he skydived down? That was a PR stunt. They're making their own news. They're making their own news to bring their brands to the forefront in really great ways. So, number 8, never forget micro communications. This is something that in PR and also as a employer, I will tell you, I'm a super stickler about. Micro communications is things that you do that people have a response to, yet you may not necessarily realize that you do. For me, I have a number 1, and it is spelling. So if you are contacting or in touch with a potential investor, partner, media person, and you have spelling errors, it is a micro communication that you're not paying attention to the details. I will tell you, in my business and in my leadership, when my accountants email me with errors, I freak out because I'm like, your job is to know the little details. So if you're missing that in an email, what are you missing in the things that you're responsible for every day? But I think that it's really important for businesses that you think about these micro communications, and also the micro communications can help you as you market your business and as you market your product. Going back to the Sphero case, remember, expensive toy. Something that they really worked on was, what was the presentation when you opened up the box? So you'd get it off your shelf at Target, take the plastic off, and then they actually had like an Apple product-like experience from when you opened up the box. You would take out the like the brochure, you would pull the product out. Like it was pretty amazing, but that is the messaging that they left with you, was that there was a lot of value and it really made the product feel special. Make sure your delivery is crisp. That goes, again, to what I was just talking about, in just making sure that everything is in line with your brand, your message, and ultimately, number 1, determining what you want. And I'm gonna go, oh, you do? Oh, hey.
Oh, sweet. So going to Sphero, I'd love to know the story of how they landed Disney as a strategic partner, because that's a huge accomplishment. What was that process to get there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Sphero was based in Boulder, Colorado. They were part of Techstars. So if any of you know Techstars before they partnered with Target and all of those companies, they had sort of smaller startup pods in different cities. They started with the Techstars incubator, and then once they sort of graduated from that, they were looking for another incubator, and they got into the Disney incubator. So they applied, and something super interesting that happened was that when they applied, they're there working on their product, they're assigned a mentor, and their mentor was Bob Iger, so CEO of Disney. And so Bob Iger is meeting with them one day, and he's like, I gotta show you something. And he pulls out his iPhone, and he shows them a picture of BB-8. And so as we know BB-8 today, it is the like double round robot. And Bob Iger challenges them and says, can you make this? And they came back the next day with a toy. So they had taken their round ball and put a top on it that would stay on when you would drive it around. Because that was kind of the mind bender of BB-8, was like, how does BB-8 even work? Like, how does that top stay on? But they did it overnight. And basically, at that point, very, very quickly, Disney became an investor in the company, gave them a deal to make this BB-8 toy. And then because they were a partner of Disney, they then went on to have partnerships with all of these other divisions of Disney. So I also think very similar to building out your network, they were willing to take risks. And they went in, they leapt for the biggest incubator that they could get in because they knew that they needed help at that time. Are there more questions? No? Joe? And then I go back to gratitude again. So I will tell you, I love being part of the startup community. I love being part of the media. The media quite often calls and asks for recommendations or connections, and I share all of the people that I know, whether they are our clients or not. Obviously, I promote our clients as much as I possibly can, but sometimes I just have to be a problem solver. I will tell you the people that never said thank you for getting them some of the biggest features that they've ever had. To me, that is just a really difficult way to have a relationship, and especially when it is that you want to come back and like, I really want to give. So just say thank you. Like, say thank you to all of the people that meet, because really, truly, business and entrepreneurism, it takes a village. It takes every single contact that you have to help you to get there and to be grateful for all of that. I know that's why I'm still in business. Great.
All right, we have an online question. Any suggestions for pitching cooperatives? Cooperative members can get dividends, but these dividends are typically based on purchases at the co-op and are smaller amounts than what typical investors want on returns. That's kind of like
Yep.
the statement.
I'm thinking. This is my thinking phase. Gosh. So they want to know how
They want suggestions for pitching cooperatives.
okay, like a grocery co-op?
That's a good question.
Well, because I'm thinking about, we've actually had awesome grocery co-op clients. So, but I'm wondering if maybe it's like a different kind of co-op. Okay.
Let's say grocery.
Let's say grocery. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one of our clients has been Lakewinds Co-op. They're
She said food co-op.
food co-op. Okay, that's great. Well, so we've worked with Lakewinds. We've worked with Seward. Excuse me. I think we've worked with Mississippi Market as well. I believe that they're a co-op. The best ways for pitching them. Well, I think that co-ops. What I think the best angle is that they're a group of people that is united under a common cause and service, which is typically community. So if you can lean on your good news of the community and what you are doing for the community, I think you can get media coverage for that. But I think the question might be going one other way, which is how do you sign up people for the co-op? I don't know, but I'm going to guess.
She also said, but for ride share.
For ride share. Okay. Again, I would go back to the sense of community and what actually, number 6, be a solution. Rideshare or co-op is a solution for a community. Rideshare makes the earth a better place, helps you to meet your neighbors, is a way to get around for fewer dollars. That's what I would lean on. I hope that's helpful. That's the weird thing of the virtual world. I don't know if you're virtual, but I'm excited for the question. You can always email me, Alexis@LolaRed. You can just call me too. Phone number's online. I think that's what I have. Are there questions? Oh, good.
Thanks, Alexis. I know we talked a little bit about this, and you mentioned it with like blind spots for Kyle, but I'm thinking about the transformation that a pro athlete or a hacker has to make in their role as entrepreneur and leader of the company, and what kind of like things that they were really challenged with some of the demands of doing that. Like for Kyle, was it if you're not a natural networker, you talked a little bit about how he prepared and what he had to do there, but even for the guys at Sphero, were there things that they really had to lean into, and how did they navigate that, especially from like the PR perspective or messaging? I mean, what was like the transformation like? Where did you have to push, and really kind of like, you got to be here, even if you're an engineer?
Joe, I love this question because I have the answer. I do, and I didn't know that Joe was going to ask this. I work with Joe Montgomery. I talk to Joe a lot. But so the answer is, and this is the secret to PR, know your audience. And it's a lesson that I hate because I wish that in the world that I could show up in all of my rainbows and glitter and everything crazy that I am on the inside. But sometimes when I need or want something, I have to think about who is my audience and what are they going to respond to. I will tell you that with some success, you get a little bit more leeway. So like Mark Zuckerberg, he can still wear a hoodie. I don't know if he does, maybe, whatever. But know your audience that you are presenting to, and that was a Sphero lesson. When they're sitting around with Bob Iger will let them be whoever they are, whatever they want, but they also needed to show up with a level of respect for what he has done and what they could potentially do to him. It's also super interesting when I think of someone like a Kyle Rudolph, that level of respect, how he most easily translated it. His best friend is now, used to play football, is now he reports, he has a show on ESPN. It's Mike Golick Jr. His best friend's dad is Mike Golick Sr., who is like a legend in football and ESPN world. And to this day, his best friend's dad, he still calls him Mr. Golick. And that is because it is a level of respect and knowing his audience. You know that he could call him whatever he wants to call him, but he will not do that. So does that answer your question? It is to be prepared and to present to that audience. Like if I had to go and present to accountants, I would probably show them a spreadsheet, not the drawings that I prefer to present in.
I have a question.
I'm like, where are you?
I'm right here. First of all, thank you so much for coming. I am amazed that you have 2-month-old twins at home and you came out. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I'm Casey Schultz. I'm the executive director of Beta and Startup Week. And my question is for companies who are just getting started, how early in the journey of starting a company do you start laying the groundwork? And is there a framework that you can turn people toward to where they can get some of the elements together so that when they're ready, and maybe you can give some insight when they would be ready to come work with a Lola Red, they've done a lot of the hard work, so it's not so hard when they come to you.
Guess what, Casey? I have this answer too. So I really feel like I'm winning today. But so that you should be thinking about how you can utilize media coverage, you need to figure out what you want from it. So, are you looking for money? Are you looking for customers? Are you ready for those two things? If you are not ready, then what does the attention get you? So, and I guess this would be the same thing in digital media, because I think, this is my opinion, PR just for PR's sake is really just wasting time. It's wasting a lot of people's time. If a company can't do something with the attention that they get, then you're ready. And you don't necessarily, shoot me, but you don't necessarily need a professional at first. So I think getting to understand what you want, if you're going to raise money, here's a simple piece of advice. You should be talking to business media. The reason you should be talking to business media, people with money read business media outlets. So that give them a reason to and to think about your company. Does that make sense? And then on the flip side, once you are ready for consumers, if someone can get online and buy your product, then you're ready to talk and to tell somebody. And we've actually, and triple check that you are ready for someone to buy your stuff online. One of our other favorite clients to talk about is Love Your Melon. So Love Your Melon, we started with them when they were just two guys at a card table at Grand Ole Day, and we absolutely fell in love with them. We actually got them, their story, which they have an incredible story, we got it on the Today Show. We got it on the Today Show, which is NBC, which airs the Olympics. And when we got them on the Today Show, the Olympics, was that as the Today Show aired from East Coast, going across the country, their website just kept crashing over and over and over. Now remember, this was like olden days of the internet. Oh, thanks. This was olden days of the internet, so it wasn't actually their fault. It was like internet. But to test and to be prepared for what that attention can get you, I think is really important for companies right now.
So if we go back to that case study, I'd be curious to see.
You want me to put it back on the screen?
Yeah, what were the goals of the Sphero? What were their initial, like, what was year one when they decided to go with you guys? What was their year one goal? How did that change over year 2, 3, and up to year 5?
Original goals, they were kind of phases. So when we started with Sphero, they did not have a relationship with Disney. So their first goal and our first challenge was to launch their education product to educators. And that is a hefty challenge, because figuring out all of the publications and places that teachers get, where they get their information, we had to do some digging, because it's not just traditional consumer. It then evolved to launching their partnership with Star Wars, which, let me just tell you, if you do anything with Star Wars or Disney, like it is literally the easiest PR you could ever do. That was not a challenge. No challenge there. Star Wars is newsy. What is newsy, and what we have up here, is to establish the co-founders and the CEO as thought leaders. Because we had to take 2 hackers who are super smart, but we had to work with them and train them and evolve them into connected play experts that can speak to why your child needs a connected toy. And then we had the CEO who, because they were getting so many investment dollars and working with publicly held Disney, they needed to be talking to shareholders of those companies and also providing sort of talking points and credibility to the investments that were made.
And just a quick follow-up question. When I see the words, because global thought leader, taking that a step below, like, how do you guys define once they reached being a global thought leader?
Well, we had to think global because the products were distributed globally. So, and this is actually, it's something that we're currently doing with a client our client is based in Japan. They have a partner, and our leadership comes out of San Francisco or Silicon Valley, really. They have a European business, and we had to engage with it's a handheld translation device. We had to engage with PR firms that are over in Europe so that they could help to translate, no pun intended, but translate what is happening in media at that time for us. We have the strategy. We know that the strategy and what this handheld pocket translator is sort of their core of their business right now is solutions for healthcare workers. It is a solution for responders. It started as a travel device, but in thinking about how you are a global thought leader on something like that, we needed to pull in a partner just to understand what that means. But to say that you're a big deal in Germany and Australia and Sweden really resonates when you come back to the United States. You guys, what you're missing if you're watching this on your screen is that there is like bright sunlight right on you. Is your name David?
It is.
David, you're like spotlight right on you.
How did you know my name is David? You can see that from up there?
I can.
Thank you. Unpack a little bit more of that Love Your Melon piece where you said, oh, we got them on the Today Show. Something in that story had you say, this is so cool. We have to get this to an audience like this. Can you share a little bit more about how that happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think that their story is like a story of goodness. So 2 kids in doing a college project who they want to do a college project and make cool things that do good for the world. So buy a beanie, give a beanie. And then for us, actually, the pitch that we originally did to the Today Show was was twofold. One, it had nothing to do with the beanies, although they were in there. It was that they would go around and do superhero days at children's hospitals. So the guys that started Love Your Melon and all of their friends would dress up like superheroes and go to hospitals just to show kids that are in hospitals that are really sick a really good time. And they would take them on like helicopter rides and airplane rides. And so that was the story that we led with. To follow it up, because like not every pitch gets the Today Show right away. They did something that was newsy, in that they got a tour bus and they drove around to college campuses. And remember, they were like just out of college, so they knew this market. They drove around to college campuses. They really actually focused on the East Coast, which was super helpful to us in pitching media. And what they would do is that they'd park their bus, and for I think that they were giving free haircuts, which is really shaving your head. And as they would do that, like they would give a beanie to a kid with cancer, I believe, pediatric cancer. But what helped us in that, and what I think really turned the key for the Today Show, was that when we were talking about that bus tour, we had numerous stops so that we could continue to pitch. Okay, they just stopped in Philadelphia. They just were in Boston. We just had 50 kids shave their heads, and we donated this many. They would also stop at the children's hospitals in that area. We also had a physical piece of news that was happening in New York City, which, yes, we are in a global world today, but New York is still a really awesome headquarters for news. And they were driving their tour bus into Times Square. And so we were able to, actually, for that, they got Good Morning America for driving the tour bus into Times Square to then give out beanies and share their message, which I hope I'm answering your question a little bit. It was multifaceted. It was a story that was filled with goodness. So I think it's interesting if you watch the Today Show now, which I'm probably watching it more than I ever have. Stories like that are being, now they're really sponsored stories. So when I was watching the Today Show yesterday, whoever, it was either Verizon or T-Mobile, they're like, we just gave a town free internet. I'm like, I thought the internet was kind of free in a town. I don't know, but the good part of their story was that I think that they gave away like 1,400 laptops to a school. That is a paid opportunity today for someone like a T-Mobile. So I'm sure they're paying a pretty penny in addition to giving away a lot of things. That is how media has changed. And that is why we have evolved as a company, and that we are looking at our clients, and that the pure, true earned media you do not pay for, that needs to have a really tight and right story element to it, and that give back element will always has some legs. And secondly, you need to be creating your own content and putting out your own news versus just relying on the news to amplify your message. Does that help? That answer? Anyone else? Oh, yeah. There's one more question. Thank you for having questions. I like this. I'm not going to sit here and talk all day. I have to go home. I have 2 babies. Okay.
So my question is this. How do you build those connections when you're not someone like Kyle Rudolph, and you don't see people like you or people of color like you in those spaces that you can connect with? How do you build that network? How do you connect with them? How do you even get into those spaces where you meet those people?
I hope I can answer this gracefully. I might have hinted at it before. Sometimes you have to do the things that are uncomfortable. So I think if I'm hearing your question right, you're asking, how do you get at the tables with the president of Comcast? Is that what you're asking? So it seems as if it was easy for Kyle. It wasn't easy for Kyle. And here's how he solved that conundrum, because he knew he wanted to play with the big decision makers at companies, and he wanted to have deals when he went to the Super Bowl to sit and wine and dine with people and get big sponsorship opportunities. One, he was a squeaky wheel with his agent. So his agent, because the agent had other big players on his roster, Kyle's name wouldn't necessarily rise to that. So Kyle would call the agent all the time, who, became his buddy and now is his great business mentor, but to say, I want to do more marketing stuff. I want to do more marketing stuff. I want to do more marketing stuff. Sign me up. So much so that the agent and the team over there couldn't sign him up for things, probably just to get him to stop calling. Number 2, he found the team that could help him to get that. So because he had a job to do. So that is why he engaged with, at the time, me and us at our company, because he needed someone to help him to talk and connect on his behalf. And number 3, he started, it was baby steps. It was baby steps. So Kyle Rudolph didn't just go from, he didn't just show up one day and sit with the owner of Carlson Companies. First, we had to show up at the car dealership for nothing to do a signing, and then meet the owner of the car dealership, and then bring an idea for a solution to the owner of the car dealership about a different way to think about deals for car dealerships. Then we had to do a free thing with Chipotle just to make the thing, which that was irritating. I'm like, you're Chipotle. I'm like, I give you all my money, like but we're gonna do something unpaid for him, but it was because we wanted the relationship. So I hope that did I answer it, and that it is sometimes doing the smaller things to start with, because you don't always start at superstar level. Okay, yay, that's it.